I think based out is such a strong term. For us nomads, I
Yeah,
mean,
fair.
wherever the suitcase lands, right?
Good point. Good point. Where is your favorite place to nomad then? That's a better question.
Oof. I mean, there's so many good places. Depends if I want to get work done or if I just want to get in trouble. Yeah, but I mean, it's always good to be with builders. I think, Lisbon and Dubai tend to have a lot of builders, which is great for business.
Yeah, Dubai was surprising that they had so many builders. Also, like Thailand,
Paulo, don't give him the
Myanmar.
alpha, please.
Uh,
That's my happy place.
Yeah, it's like everybody telling people to
it-
go to the West Coast as a vacation spot. It just completely ruined it.
For real, man, we gotta keep it pure. How about you, man? Where are you based?
San Diego, so super sunny, but we've been having some crazy rain come through the last couple of days, which has been throwing me off my normal vibes. But
Yeah, man, I
overall,
heard it's insane.
yeah,
You
yeah.
guys like have droughts, then you have like, flooding. What's going on? I thought California was like good weather.
I don't know. We pissed somebody off, man.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, there's some bad juju in the air. It's either a wildfire in the summer, some crazy rain in the winter. San Francisco is crazy right now too. I don't know if you guys saw, but like I think one of their major highways is completely underwater, like 2 weeks ago. So it's been pretty wild, but we're good down here. Stay as close to the border in SoCal. It's a lot nicer.
Yeah, it's all SoCal to me. I'm not very familiar with the area. But I gotta tell you, just in Bangkok, I think you'll be fine.
I'm
This
hoping
time of year
so.
is pretty, yeah.
I'm going to Singapore for Polygon at the Pit in 2 weeks, and I was looking at the weather there. It's supposed to be like all thunderstorms and like 90-degree like humidity, so it should be pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's intense.
Yeah,
No, Singapore is really nice for business too, but I think it's less builders and a lot of like, VCs, a lot of exchanges, a lot of like China money. But,
totally.
it depends on what
Lots
you're
of
looking for.
funds.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we can go ahead, I think, and get started here. First of all, thanks so much for joining. Super happy to have the Chi Dao guys here. We'll hopefully have more people roll in as the call gets going. But just to give you guys a brief introduction, for those of you who aren't aware of what Chi Dao is, it's a pretty crazy platform. I was doing a deep dive earlier this week, and obviously there's a lot to unpack in the DeFi space, but would love for you guys to give just a brief introduction of yourselves before we jump into the actual platform and kind of, what got you involved in DeFi and what are you guys doing here? What's your MO? Why do you love crypto?
Man, what are we doing here? I think that's like the fun question, especially now in the bear market. I think we're just having fun, trying out new things, experimenting, see if, any of this is gonna be part of the future of finance. So it's a really crazy time, and I think, especially now in the bear, there's a little more like, pushback from the market when you launch things. So like the quality is much higher, I think at least.
Totally.
But yeah, a little intro to myself. Like I've been in crypto for a bit. The penguin over here was the one that convinced me about, all these like internet tokens and weird things. Um, I used to do investment banking in New York, so I came from the dark side. But I've always been very interested in finance, and so now I'm a Chirao, and yeah, I do a lot of like strategy work, BD, and then also, the janitor. So, I'm cleaning the toilets, make sure the windows are nice. So that's kind of my thing.
I love that. That's awesome. And yeah, let's go over to Keela really quick. Keela, I'd love to hear more kind of about your background too and what got you started.
Um, well, I'm Pablo, the penguin. Kila unfortunately couldn't make it to with us today, I think. Um,
Yeah, he will make it today.
Okay.
But Mr.
yeah,
Pinguino is here.
Gotcha. I
yeah,
love
penguin.
Pablo too,
Yeah.
so love to hear your background.
So, well, my background is a bit more in tech related, like lots of coding and like hackathons. And I think one of my first just crypto experiences was a blockchain.info hackathon or Money 2020 way back in the day. Like, didn't really understand crypto. It was cool. Uh, but over a few years, I had more experiences in like helping organize events with crypto. And then I got an offer to work at Consensus like 6 years ago or so. And that's kind of when it all clicked, when I saw these guys hunker down in like, um, it was like a small office in New York. And like there was this one guy building a small AWS connector to Ethereum. And well, that guy turned out to be the founder of Infura, and it was kind of wild that it was three people building something that was processing millions of transactions. And I was kind of convinced that you could, with a small team, create something of a lot of value.
Yeah.
And
Can I
yeah,
can I just say that the hackathon experience is absolutely insane, I think, for new people trying to get into crypto. I was at ETH San Francisco a couple weeks ago, and or I guess a couple months now, but it was absolutely insane, like the amount of builder turnout despite it being a bear market, the amount of hype that people had for the ecosystem. I think the conference scene honestly is like the big reason of, what keeps me motivated in this space because you just meet so many like driven and smart people. It's pretty insane.
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
definitely. Like if you see the builders don't care about the market. They're just building. They get an extra couple days because they're off of a finals and they just want to create a bunch of stuff. Like that doesn't stop because the number go up or down.
Right, right. And honestly, I think that's a great segue too into Qi Dao, because I think for a lot of people who, may not be super accustomed to DeFi, right? There's a lot of a lot of technology in the space, a lot of apps being built, and for someone who's just trying to break into it, it probably isn't super clear of where you should start and where you should go. So maybe is kind of like a little segue off of that vibe of trying to keep things friendly and open to new users and get people excited for the technology. Let's do a quick little intro into just Qi DAO and kind of My Finance, because I think you guys are really at the heart of a lot of major DeFi products. My being the collateralized stablecoin, for those of you who don't know, who really has seen a huge amount of traction. I mean, that's why I pulled in these guys from across Solana, from Avalanche. I mean, you guys have a lot of ecosystem traction just outside of Polygon too. So I'd kind of love to hear like the origin story for Qi DAO itself and where you guys are coming from that angle.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right. Cheetah is like an over collateralized stablecoin protocol, kind of like MakerDAO, if you're familiar. But yeah, I mean, early on, we knew that cross-chain was going to be like the thing, and you're gonna have all these different chains popping up, and they were gonna need to have some sort of like native way of instantiating liquidity, right? Because a lot of the decentralized stablecoins at the time, and even today, they're just minted on Ethereum. And I'm talking about decentralized stablecoins, right? And so if you have a decentralized stablecoin in Ethereum and you bridge it, that's not the same. Like DAI on like Ethereum or whatever decentralized stablecoin is not the same stablecoin if you have it on Polygon, right? Because it's been bridged. And so we made some sort of like a hub um, method in which QDAO itself exists parallel in each of the chains. Like it's the same thing but completely separate, only tied by this stablecoin called MAI. And this allowed people to, mint against the native assets that they have on those chains. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's been pretty nice because at the time, stablecoins were pretty boring. People didn't really talk about stablecoins. I mean, now, I mean, over the past last year, like everybody's talking about stablecoins, but initially people were just forking dexes or maybe money markets. Nobody was really doing stablecoins, so that really allowed us to spread out.
Yeah, that's honestly a really crazy backstory too, at least for me, because I feel like the bridging issue has come up in nearly every space that I've been in, right? There's been a huge push to find actual valuable bridging that isn't, susceptible to either centralization where you're putting money through a middleman, this seems like a really interesting, like more native way at least to give each ecosystem a way to like interoperate with Mai and QiDao and not have kind of the same, issues of a middleman as you would have with other platforms, right?
Yeah, the coolest part about that is the at least the canonical bridging is that we were able to connect different bridges and reduce or increase exposure depending on which bridge um has we at the end of the day we want to reduce our exposure to a bridge so that we're not the majority of the bridge's TVL. So we can um be flexible in terms of what MI is available to bridge and what bridge so that you don't end up with all your liquidity or all your tokens be managed by a single bridge.
Yeah, on that point too about risk management, I really wanted to kind of touch on this because I think for the audience, a lot of people may have heard of algorithmic and collateralized stablecoins, and obviously we had like the whole Terra Luna blow up earlier last year. I'd love to kind of know more about, what separates your guys' collateralized stablecoin from, say, like some of the competitors out there, because obviously you guys are still maintaining that soft peg while other platforms are definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, risk management is extremely important, but I think we take a very different approach than a lot of protocols. For us, it's about making as much information as possible and making it open for people to see. So, what collaterals do we have? The percentage that they make up of my, um, different things like volatility, like centralization of their liquidity, on-chain liquidity, all this kind of stuff. So then people themselves can say, okay, do I think that my is a safe stablecoin or not, right? And so that's really what's made us stand apart. Also, we don't take centralized tokens as collateral, so that's very important in terms of like a censorship resistant narrative. But I'll let Pablo like continue.
Yeah, jumping in a little deeper into, for example, centralization of liquidity, that effectively means who holds the liquidity of your collateral or the collateral that we're holding. Because, for example, let's say we go on layer two that recently like deploys, there may be one or two holders of all the BTC liquidity bridged over from Ethereum. That may be risky depending on, like, even if they have a Chainlink Oracle there, it's two holders of 90% of the liquidity. That would be risky for us to add it to a certain amount because most of that liquidity could be spooked. The market goes down and they don't want to expose themselves to the risk. Suddenly we have to wait for people to bridge, and that could put collaterals on in a bad position.
Right. That makes a lot of sense too. I mean, the big thing I think too with that kind of model is that by being over collateralized, even when you have people getting liquidated, it isn't a huge risk to the platform because the underlying assets are stacked up, right? You're not having to deal with value decreasing just from like a snowball effect if things are over collateralized. If I'm guessing that's right in some sense, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about who's bearing the risk is the user, right? If the collaterals go down in value, the protocol doesn't get liquidated. It's the actual users. That's a big issue with some stablecoins where a lot of the backing is owned by the protocol. So a lot of times where you have these swapping mechanisms, right? Where you swap, I don't know, USDC or something like this for the stablecoin. If something happens to that collateral, who's going to liquidate the protocol? Nobody, right? And so then who's bearing the risk? The protocol is. So they would have to cover the whole. And so that's how we try to change the dynamic.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense too, because at least for like 2022 as a whole year, right, going back, it seems like you guys have had a killer year, despite all of the negative sentiment in just the general crypto space. And obviously, there's probably been a lot of news too that's probably helped you guys in some way. I mean, I know MakerDAO probably lost a lot of faith with some community members by introducing real world assets on chain because some people were taken aback by the idea of having like middlemen basically updating the correct, basically operating as oracles for them in some sense or some fashion. And same thing too with like Terra Luna blowing up. Other, stable coins and algorithmic coins lost a lot of trust, but it seems like you guys are doing really well for yourself. So I'd love to kind of elaborate a little bit more. In 2022, what were like the big highlights for you guys? Were there any moments where you're like, wow, I can't believe we've made it this far?
I think for at least for on the BD side, I think what's been really good for us is the friendships we've developed with other protocols. Like you mentioned, MakerDAO, we get really well along with MakerDAO. We constantly like talk to them about what we're doing. We kind of vet different ideas with them. It's kind of weird if you come from another industry to have such like good interactions with your competition, but that's just how crypto works, right? And so I think for us in 2022, it was really marked by that. I mean, we got listed on Aave, on Stargate, like on all these other protocols, and it's all about just like the friendships and like the relationships we've been able to create.
Totally. That makes a ton of sense too. I mean, the funny thing about crypto is just like you said, like you're able to have this really interesting competitor dynamic where, you can rely on a lot of your competitors to actually help you in the space because sometimes it's mutually beneficial for everybody to kind of work together to solve a common problem than it is for us to kind of fight head to head, which is the one thing that I think is awesome about kind of like the decentralized mission behind crypto. I mean, that's the same for us with Infra, right? If everything was done through Chainstack, it wouldn't be as decentralized as possible. And obviously, we love having competition keep us on our toes and being able to share feedback back and forth. I kind of wanted to pose this to either Usman or Tabasco really quick. In your guys' respective spaces, obviously there's a lot of stable coins and other DeFi projects that are popping up out of the woodwork. But I was really curious to kind of hear your perspective, like for QiDao, how has like DeFi been in 2022 for Solana and Avalanche? And kind of maybe are there ways that, QiDao has like some interoperability with some projects that you've seen in the space?
Uh, yeah, I can go real quick and give some insight on Solana, and then I can hand it over to Usman. So Solana, in terms of DeFi and stable DeFi for that, struggles in a lot of areas, and Solana does not have the best track record for DeFi that works without being hacked frequently. So Solana has a lot of work to do in terms of the DeFi space and in terms of secure DeFi and reliable DeFi. I think QiDao offers a really unique solution to a lot of different DeFi related issues that Solana definitely could utilize and take advantage of, and should. I believe you guys said that you're cross chain in some regard. But no, Solana has a lot of issues and a lot of work to do in terms of making DeFi reliable. And of course, the chain itself is very enabling of unique DeFi opportunities, in that the chain, like we mentioned in the last space, is very fast and has a lot of unique characteristics that make different types of DeFi possible on Solana that aren't possible on other chains. But this also means that because of a new type of DeFi and slightly different operations compared to potentially EVM chains, that things are very novice and new and get hacked very frequently and typically aren't super reliable. So the big challenge with Solana DeFi moving forward is achieving reliable DeFi, and stable coins that can keep their value, and trading in different money making features that you can really rely on and utilize on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, 100%. I guess I'll give the Avalanche perspective here. DeFi on Avalanche is actually one of the most exciting innovations that's going on within the ecosystem right now. There's a lot of really cool projects that are building some awesome stuff. The biggest probably DeFi protocol that everyone knows on Avalanche is Trader Joe, which kind of innovated this new AMM model called Liquidity Book, which is really taking shape. They've just really started seeing a lot of traction, where maybe TVL might not be as high, but liquidity is higher than ever. In some, it's a really interesting mechanism that they've established, and they've just expanded to Arbitrum actually. There's a lot of other really cool projects that are building. Delta Prime is another one, kind of decentralizing prime brokerages on Avalanche. There's a lot of institutions also coming over. KKR just tokenized one of their healthcare funds. So in terms of decentralized finance innovation, there's a lot of great stuff going on within the ecosystem. But one thing that has truly been lacking within the ecosystem that I know not only myself, but a lot of other builders feel is this stablecoin aspect, where there is no one true stablecoin within the ecosystem currently that holds true, has the real liquidity to be able to push the ecosystem forward. I know there's a lot of projects that are looking to build that. I know probably the most significant one is Platypus DeFi. They're building a stablecoin called USP, still in the works, still building. And obviously going back to what Matt said earlier, it's always a question about how's the stablecoin collateralized? How, is it going to keep its peg? These things are unanswered questions that are never answered until the coin is actually launched and being used on a daily basis and actually transacting millions or, tens of millions of dollars of value per day. So it is that unanswered question within the ecosystem currently of where is that stablecoin volume going to come from, and how is that going to push the ecosystem forward, because it is one thing that is missing. But I think it's a great place to build a stablecoin protocol if someone is looking to go that route. And I know we mentioned Cheetah, you guys have the bridge into the Avalanche ecosystem, and you guys are expanding in a lot of different ways. So to me, that's very exciting, seeing the success that you guys have had in Polygon. And hopefully we can get something similar within the Avalanche ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks, Usman. Going off that same point, I was kind of curious to kind of spin this to Benjamin and Pablo real quick. For you guys, obviously Polygon has been the home chain. I'm pretty sure I saw you guys on a lot of the branding for ETH India and a lot of the Polygon Connect stuff they were doing over there. I'm curious right now because it seems like Polygon is the main driver for TVL right now, at least for QiDAO. But are there other chains that you're starting to see more adoption in? Is there kind of more growth coming from like Avalanche, Solana, or other chains like that?
Pretty optimistic with Optimism.
Lol.
The, yeah, they've been pretty great at developing a culture of like, let's do these farms, let's create perpetuals, let's build products on top of the different strategies. It's been pretty fun to build on Optimism as well. Um, yeah, for us recently, it's been also a lot of test nets. Like, to be frank, now we get to test a lot more, um, building like bigger pieces of infrastructure. I think recently we released the transporter for CCIP, so the Chainlink, um, the cross-chain Chainlink interoperability protocol. Um, that's been really nice to build with. It's effectively like a, another bridge, but you can now send messages in a way that is secure with the same style of system as the Chainlink Oracle. So a lot of fun stuff on the testnets, and that's been through Avalanche, Gorley, and Optimism.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to one of the Optimism DevRels yesterday. They had their Bedrock update on Gurley, and yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. At least for you guys, coming from like the builder perspective, it's probably easier, right, for you guys to work with other EVM compatible chains. No?
Yeah, I mean,
Bit,
our first chain was Solana, right? After Polygon. So, but obviously EVM is the most comfortable.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And going kind of like to a more broader picture, right? Outside of what chain you're focusing on for the next year, I think the big question right now in DeFi is like, how do we onboard the next million users into the protocols? And obviously, stablecoins are going to be a major player in that role. You guys are easily one of like the fastest touch points, I think, for someone to get started on DeFi. I was following a thread that Crypto Texan put out about how he went through My Finance, got some My, then went on to Zero Vic to swap, get some staking done there. He was doing some testing with Time Swap. You guys are literally the entry point, I think, to nearly every other project in the Polygon ecosystem, and probably others too. So, really, for like the roadmap in 2023, I want to hear from you guys. What's like one thing that you guys are really striving for to get done this year that you haven't really focused on in previous years?
from the contract side, I think, oh, the contracts and like application side, we're looking to create more tools and systems that we can spin up quickly here, uh, as a chain starts having more activity. So if a chain becomes very active, we can start adding different things like stability pools or uh, managed collateral positions, DeFi Saver style solutions. Like DeFi Saver is a way to manage your vault automatically. So we're looking at spinning these solutions up as the activity increases within the chain. So I think for 2023, it's a lot of that will become implemented. So we're testing them on testnets, building them out, and instead of just releasing it everywhere all at once, which can be an operational burden that's just insane, because given we're about on 20 chains so far, rolling these out as activity spins back up is going to be one of our plays.
Yeah, speaking of test nets, I saw you guys are playing around with the ZK EVM faucet. Is there any alpha you guys can elaborate on there?
Yeah, if you can right now go mint Chi and Mai. I think it's 1,000 Chi or Chi and Mai per 24 hours. Our goal there is to try to spam as much as we can into ZKVM, store as much data there so that we can show, okay, this is the real world scenario, not just a couple hundred users, but say a few thousand transactions or a few tens of thousands transactions a day. So having a lot more applications and tools running on top of ZKVM will allow us to showcase the real world functionality, not just a testnet functionality.
Totally, yeah. The scalability is the big thing that I'm looking forward to with ZK EVM. I'm actually in the process of doing a thread right now, writing that up. I was curious though, so taking a broader step back from even Polygon and testnets builds, in DeFi in 2023, obviously there's a lot of goals to be reached and a lot of movement to be made in the ecosystem. Who, outside of QiDao have been kind of your biggest supporters? Who have been kind of the people that you look to for a lot of advice, a lot of feedback, or who have been just really like rock solid in keeping you guys on your mission? It could be internal or external from your team.
I mean, we have so many people that have been supporting us. I think Mai would be nothing if it wouldn't be for its partners. Like just off the top of my head, I think the three big ones, at least in Q1 of this year, are gonna be, Kyber, Lido, and Beefy. Like those, I mean, Beefy is amazing, top tier team. They provide us with a lot of interest-bearing collaterals that we've added. We have a great relationship with them. Lido, I mean, the kind of demand we've seen for their assets in our platform has been insane. And what's great is that they understand the need to work with other people. There are a lot of like teams in crypto, and they usually don't last very long, that think that they have to do everything themselves. But then there's the teams that like Lido, right? Like they understand, okay, if we build with other people, if we have interoperability, then we create this system that benefits everybody, and they really understand that. So on Monday, actually, we're going to be starting a big liquidity mining campaign with them. So basically, people are going to be paid in LDO for minting Mai against these interest-bearing collaterals that they have. And then Kyber, of course, Kyber is like amazing DEX. I think it's like a hidden gem because a lot of people, when they think stablecoin liquidity, they think Curve, but like Kyber is just amazing for volume, amazing for the peg, and they have the flexibility to do deals with you that might not be present in other dexes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the Dex thing is huge, I think, just because of the current environment we're in after FTX and everything that's happened. I mean, to be honest, I think that's the next big push for DeFi is getting enough trustworthy dexes that like regular users can hop on and even with a credit card can get access to an on-ramp. I've been seeing a lot of big pushes. I know Uniswap just like released recently kind of updates to their credit card policy, making it easier for you to get in with fiat. Is there any, alpha you can give on this and kind of just your perspective in the DeFi space after, the failures we've seen from traditional sexes? We've seen a lot of, fallout, at least in the centralized DeFi space. Have you guys been seeing actually like a bigger boost in traction since all of this stuff happened, or has it been kind of the same for you?
For like sexes and stuff like that.
Yeah, after the fallout that happened,
Mm.
have you guys seen a bigger boost in just people interested in DeFi and interested in decentralized like alternatives?
To be honest, I think the people that like are seeking yield in decentralized means like USDC, like Celsius, stuff like that. They're LPs that are widely diversified across other sectors of the economy, like outside of crypto. So a lot of those people actually left. Um, some of them, like maybe like medium, like the people that really care about privacy, but they're not like extremely wealthy. Those people are moving into crypto. But I don't think it's like a huge like what we thought, like everybody that was in FTX. Well, I guess they have the money to move it over, but everybody that was in other sexes, moving over, that's not really what's happening. I do think I have seen a lot of movement around different models of centralized finance. We'll see how they end up. Like a lot of people, like in South America, I've heard, and in the Middle East, have been talking about, like again, the age old, like mixing DeFi with CeFi, having non-custodian, um, centralized exchanges. But it's a similar narrative that I'm not sure will win, but we'll see. I have heard a lot about that. I don't know if Pablo has been following that space.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've seen there has been with the CeFi kind of crashing a bit. A lot of users, so a huge user count coming in into DeFi, but the TVL has been either stayed or lowered a bit. I think after the huge crash, we lowered from like 300, 400 million TVL to about 80, and now we're sitting around 50, and we've been about 50 for 6 months or so. And so even though our TVL has been sitting there, the number of vaults has tripled. The number of users continues to grow. So at, from that perspective, we're seeing a ton of users. And yeah, CeFi into DeFi kind of changed. Before you would go, for example, to FTX and use one of their derivatives, one of their stock derivatives, or one of their perps. But now we're integrating those perps directly into on-chain, which really gives us more flexibility. You can use one perp from protocol A or perp from protocol B or on-chain A or on chain B. And so now you have a lot more options as a user. So
Right.
not necessarily the rollout of users that we would expect, like millions of users coming in, but we're seeing a lot more use of it.
I mean, even still, for a bear market, that's really impressive to see, because normally you'd have a lot of this education happening, at least off of hype from people trying to, get into crypto for more monetary financial reasons. But it seems like there's a lot more just general interest in the space, despite, everything that's happened. So I'm really hoping that just in the fallout of everything over the next year or so, we'll see kind of a lot more grassroots efforts. I know that at least from the builder side, we're seeing huge upticks in the number of smart contracts being deployed. I know if you're looking into like installs of like Ethers JS or Hardhat, those numbers are way up over the last few months. And it really goes to show you that I think a lot of the numbers that we focus on, like TVL or even just like general like market cap, right? They're not really representative of what people are doing in the space. I love the fact that like we can really track both on chain and off chain the number of people that are building and really like learning. That's the big thing I think for people in the future. And I
Yeah, man, the amount of people I've seen that like tell me, "Oh, I've been in crypto for like 2 months." It's amazing. Like it's crazy, especially when you go to conferences. I'm really excited for ETH Denver because that's like for me one of the main conferences in crypto. And it used to be so small, but last year at least, it was crazy the amount of new people, and I really expect this year to be the same. Just like a lot of new people that are excited about the space.
oh yeah,
Um,
that's my favorite
yeah, hopefully we
conference.
just keep bringing him in. Oh, it's amazing. And we started to do a little bit of outreach. Like, we're working with the University of Pennsylvania, which has delegated them 1 million chi, so that they can vote and be part of our community. They've been creating like materials about what we do and like looking into what QiDao is. So I think doing stuff like that, like engaging with the soon-to-be builders, is going to be very important to having more projects, to having more users.
You got to slide some of that chi over to the University of San Diego. We got some interesting funding going on in our clubs right now.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, we're always down to work with people, especially this delegation program. That's something that, I'm really excited about. I think that's very engaging, and other DeFi protocols have done it very well.
Yeah, but overall, I love the sentiment there. I mean, ETH Denver was my first conference that I ever went to last year, and the energy I got, the like warmth, the welcoming nature of everybody who was building, it was something that honestly you don't find at any other tech conference, which is something that keeps me bullish on the industry, how open and warm and accepting everyone is here. Nick, I see your hand up. What do you have to add to that?
Yeah, hey, thanks so much. Appreciate having the team on board. I kind of had a bit of a pivot question, just reading some of the docs and looking at, the way the macros and the economy is going. Some of your big pitches are, essentially borrow to pay down more expensive debt and make your money work for you, right? So, have you taken a different approach recently with the way that the economic hikes and the interest rates are going on, where you're now potentially in a position to help people consolidate their debt, even kind of in real world debt that they could tackle? Let's say I've got a big booming credit card debt or a collateral line or a line of credit with the bank that's at a variable interest rate that just keeps going up. Do you guys have use cases where you feel people are kind of converting the use of QiDao to paying off their in real world debts at higher interest rates?
I think that's definitely one angle. Like obviously rates are crap outside of like DeFi for borrowing, but I mean people that have issues like paying down their credit card debt sometimes don't have like collateral right to borrow. I think the big thing for QiDao and for Maker and like a lot of like decentralized stablecoins in this like rate regime, right, where we have very high rates, is going to be opportunity cost, right? Because if you have a dollar that you put in USDC, you earn your yield, the opportunity cost is huge, and you're going to leave like immediately when you find better bonds out there. Because I'll take a bond any day over investing in like USDC if it has a higher yield, obviously, right? Whereas if you have Bitcoin, if you have ETH, if you have Matic, if you have all these other tokens, what's your opportunity cost, right? It's not very high. There are not that many places where you can go to get some sort of like a yield. And so being able to instantiate liquidity suddenly like it's the best option, right? So I think that's going to be the big thing in terms of like the interest rate conversation.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks. And I mean, it comes to education and I see you guys do a good job on the documentation in terms of use cases, benefits, working through the collateral types, the different revenue streams. So I really appreciate the documentation. I think that's something that not that it's missing, but it's I think we've been talking about it a lot, but helping people get educated on the ways that you can use these platforms and protocols. You talked about how many new users have only been here for 2 months. And I imagine many of them, are kind of digging around in the docs trying to make sense of this. So I don't know if how much education means to you and what you guys have for plans for this year to try to educate maybe new users to onboard. Is it through, kind of use case based like wizards or widgets or, kind of a walkthrough or videos? What kind of work are you doing there?
I think Paulo can chat about that because we've done a lot of upgrades recently.
Yeah, for us, it's been a lot more widgets. We're trying to reduce the steps for people to kind of, okay, do I borrow here? What do I do afterwards? So providing more windows to opportunities for users. And that's where DeFi Llama has been amazing because they have a great API where it tracks a lot of the opportunities for interacting in DeFi. So that's one of the first things we started. I think we released it a few days ago, where you can view the top yield as you're borrowing on a specific chain. So when you switch chains, it will show you the specific yield for that chain. And so there, the user can clearly have a path to what can I do with this so I don't have just my mice sitting around and maybe I'm borrowing on Metis and I don't know which swaps are on Metis, but if I have a list in front of me, it will make my life easier. Similarly enough, last month we've added a little chart so you can clearly see the price of the asset that you're borrowing against and where your liquidation sits. So you have a line and you see the price up to like a year from you can change it, but you can see the range. And so now you can tell yourself, okay, this is the loan I'm taking. This is the price that it's been historically. So if I want to be risky and do something that the price has hit before, say borrow very closer to the current price, I'll know that it's gone lower than that, say, in 2 months ago, 4 months ago, so I need to be careful. But if I do lower than maybe the bottom for the last year or two, then you might be playing it safer. So just making the user more informed about their actions and their future activity or what they can do. And now we're working a little bit more on just adding other features. So it's not just lending, it's not borrowing. Are there other things that you can do as a user to keep yourself safe, like insurance and maybe bridge to access other yield and other chains? So we're looking at that as a second or third thing that we can add. But yeah, mostly widgets that
Yeah,
link
that's super.
out to other websites.
No, I appreciate it. And if I can, I've got a few more questions, Matt. Does that work if I'll roll through? I don't want to kill you guys with questions either, but
No, that works, Nick. I'm thinking if you're cool with it, let's do a couple more questions. Then I say open the floor to anyone who has comments from the audience.
yeah, no, totally. Don't let me step on anybody's toes. And there's some folks that definitely have some questions. So you mentioned insurance. That's kind of interesting. I've had some history in custody and cold storage and dealing with different insurance providers. Is this something you guys are thinking of doing through like coin cover? Is it going to be sort of an opt-in? Do you have any ideas about that, or is that too alpha to be discussed?
Well, we can mention a couple of the providers that we're looking at, such as like Intrace. Um, and we're also looking more into the options systems. So if you're borrowing against your Matic, what is the equivalent of an insurance? Could you buy, say, a small short that costs you $1 to cover $10 worth of your asset? If so, maybe you want to open up a short on a perpetual protocol that will allow you to protect some of your capital in the case that you get liquidated and potentially earn fees while you're doing so. So, which then moves you to more delta neutral positions, but you don't have to go all the way there. You can just protect your collateral in case, there's a flash crash.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So I guess we're now going outside of the traditional thought of like I'm going to insure my funds, but you're saying it's kind of a strategy based insurance, and you guys maybe will help guide or coach or offer ideas to new users about how to maximize that opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also
Correct.
the liquidation insurance and the peg insurance, right, Pablo? That
Yeah,
we're
those are more
developing.
traditional mechanisms that, yeah, you can like if you're holding MAI and you're maybe putting it into OVIX, where you're earning a percent plus, what OVIX can give in rewards. Yeah, you potentially go for a more traditional peg insurance, where if the peg goes lower, um, you get a payout. Yeah, so traditional and others, because options are limitless in DeFi, and I think you know a lot of traditional applications have been implemented, but now that we have a lot of perpetuals, we can also access these types of new solutions.
Yeah, that's amazing. And my last question, I guess two, but I'll try to make it into one. So, in terms of how was I going to say this? In terms of Polygon, Supernets, and Edge, is that something your team has maybe not any interest, but has thought about, or any comments? Is that something you'd be looking at in the future? Is there any value to you to kind of an app chain or a sub chain?
We're super bullish on Supernets, um, and yeah, like I think we're waiting a bit on the infrastructure to be put up so that we can do better bridging across these supernets, because our biggest worry is the fragmentation of liquidity. We can launch on a supernet tomorrow, and we can put some MAI in there, but then it's up to the users to bridge MAI over. We can put MAI as liquidity, and then the liquidity will be available for them to bridge. But then who moves there and how? And so looking at how can we use these supernets in a way that doesn't fully fragment the liquidity or make something available. If it's a game, yeah, you potentially want to have some liquidity, but if it's another EVM chain, it may be complicated because, well, why would a user be farming on Polygon and now farming on an L2? So now you have a lot of rewards that you need to be giving out. And so depending on the structure of the network, that's gonna kind of affect if we go all in with our vaults and other solutions.
Yeah, thank you. That's really cool. I mean, we at ChainStack are, I don't know if bullish could be the word, but we're quite excited and interested in obviously infrastructure providers like us, offering app chains as a service, and would love to hear how this develops. Do you think this is something that is this year? Is it, there's a little bit more work that needs to be developed? I don't know if you could tell us a bit about what would be kind of the gating factor to help you guys get more involved on the SuperNet side.
I mean, this is now. I guess we will be switching a bit from like Pablo from Cheetah and just Pablo the Penguin, like the dev, and thinking about SuperNets. I think more on the application side. What application are we providing, and what kind of custom applications can we create? Some of the cooler ones that I've seen have been things on the subnet side on Avalanche, like Spaces, where you have a space that you control, where you can provide information that is gated with your Ethereum keys. That is something very valuable for a network, because now tryspaces.xyz is the website, and basically you can store information and do things on chain. It can basically be your profile, and it doesn't clog up the main chain where most people are doing financial transactions, but now you can have more profile-based transactions or social media. Things like that seem more bullish to me in the next 12 months, and having the infrastructure providers aligned to that will allow us to build a lot more NFT applications or other solutions that aren't DeFi native, but they will bring the DeFi users, because, well, if you have a huge subnet or supernet using social applications, now you are able to get your social done, and you're probably going to also have your crypto on Polygon or on Avalanche, and you can trade it around and you can get paid or pay, but you don't necessarily clog up the DeFi side with a lot of cap fixtures.
Yeah, going off that note, I was super curious to hear your perspective on Polygon ID. I know they've been rolling that out over the last few months, and one of like the novel use cases they've been talking about has been for any type of like NFT like security, basically the idea being that you can have user profiles holding specific NFTs that give them access or no access to certain features or groups. I'm wondering, from a DeFi perspective, is that something at all that you guys are finding valuable or something that you're looking into implementing with QiDAO?
QiDAO, we're looking to implement a lot more NFTs, maybe not necessarily using a single provider or of identity, but we're looking at giving out NFTs for activity, thinking more on the achievement side, on the I borrow a certain collateral and I interact with a certain vault. You can now earn an NFT based on that activity, or you borrow from multiple collaterals and you farm. You're earning different achievements for your activity. Similar, like also if you vote and you become an active user of the platform, you can also earn these achievements, and that in turn gives us the ability to create a historical graph of who are you as a user in relation to QiDAO, which allows us to reward more of our long-term active users that are providing value to the protocol.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that's the thing I'm bullish on most is just the ability for projects like yourself to be able to really like figure out who in your community is honest and really giving back in some quantifiable way. I know that that's been a huge struggle for a lot of Web2 companies, and that's part of the reason why we're seeing a lot of this jump for customer loyalty rewards programs. I'm sure you've been following with Starbucks and some other major bank like Nubank hopping over to Polygon Supernets for customer loyalty rewards for the same reason. Basically, it's just so much easier to track what your users are up to on chain.
Certainly, and I think once we have the solutions like CK or Polygon ID, which can hide some of the data, so that I don't want all my friends to see that I got Starbucks every day and I get my caramel latte or my what's it called, the pumpkin spice latte, and I don't want them to know that. Potentially implement more CK solutions so you can still, have your privacy, but you can still have it tracked in a way that is verifiable on chain, so that nobody comes in and says, "Oh yeah, I had lattes every day for this month," and they didn't.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. Switching gears really quick, Nick, unless you have another pressing question, I'd love to open it up to the floor. Anybody who's in the audience right now, if you have something that you're interested in asking, something that you wanted to have clarified that we didn't cover recently, now's your chance. So raise your hand if you have something to add. If not, anybody on the floor for the speakers too, feel free to ask away. I see Will, we're getting you up on the stage right now. Let's see how this goes. Hey, Will, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Matt? Good to see you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, clear.
Cool.
Perfect.
Thanks to ChainStack and Cheetah for hosting this. I'm never going to be the person who's technical. I do hiring within like DeFi and crypto, so it'd be kind of cool to see, what the headcount is there, what, the culture, the hiring plans are for 2023. I guess between those few questions, I'll pause there. I'd be kind of neat to hear that. It's always cool.
Yeah, I mean, at Cheetah?
Yes, sorry if I didn't specify at Cheetah. Yes.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we have a pretty chill culture, I'd say. I mean, people pretty relaxed at Cheetah. You pick your own hours, you work from home. I like to think it's a pretty chill place to work at. In terms of hiring, I mean, all of our hires have been from the Discord, and so we get to know people pretty well before they come on board. And as a result, like people generally get along. People know the protocol pretty well, and so onboarding is pretty seamless. In terms of hiring, I mean, we don't want to be that team that hires a bunch of people and like ends up with like 200 employees, and then bear market comes and suddenly you need to have these tough conversations, right? It's better to have a small, tight-knit team that's like well rewarded, but performs. And so then, when times get hard, right, you don't have to have this like, like letting people go and stuff like that. You can just realign expectations.
Yeah, no, I love that. Really appreciate the answer. I definitely think a lean team is the way to go, as we're kind of seeing with the layoffs and the broader ecosystem. And then really love like when you touched on like hiring from the community. Like I think that's like super powerful. Appreciate your answer.
Cool. Thanks, Will. Anyone else? Feel free to jump in. If not, Tabasco, Usman, I'm kind of curious after hearing everything we touched on, is there any thoughts, from Solana or the Avalanche perspective? I know that everybody talks about the future being multi-chain, and obviously Mai has a huge role to play in getting DeFi to its next 100 million users, it sounds like. So is there anything that you guys were thinking on as we were talking there, just kind of like for future roadmaps?
I think the mission that you guys have at Cheetah and the tooling that you guys are providing is really exciting. And as somebody who focuses on Solana, it'd be exciting to see how you guys continue your journey over in that ecosystem. It's like I was saying earlier, Solana is in a big need of strong DeFi tooling, and it seems like you guys have really figured a lot of this out. And it's good to hear that you guys are successful and still building in this bear market. I think it's rare to see teams that are still kind of going at it full force, and spending a lot of time actually creating tools that people want. So it's just a huge congrats on what you guys have completed so far, and I'm excited to see what comes from Cheetah over the next few months and into 2023.
Yeah, likewise, just echoing Tabasco's sentiment there. I will mention though, I know you guys mentioned building on SuperNet, and the one thing that's kind of holding you back currently is this idea that you're not able to have interoperable, SuperNet architecture as of right now, and not able to transfer liquidity between different chains and assets between different chains. I'm not too familiar if you guys are familiar with like Avalanche's new release of AWM and Avalanche Warp Messaging, where now on subnets you can basically have IBC level interoperability between subnets, and transferring assets between chains is actually very seamless and easy. I think that could be something of benefit if you guys ever look to go in the direction of building on Avalanche.
Yeah, actually, I haven't heard about that. That's like pretty interesting.
Yeah, Usman's our resident subnet expert, so if you ever need more info, feel free to DM him.
Yeah, man, I'll definitely I'll definitely hit you up because obviously we're like constantly looking for these new like infrastructure development.
100%. And yeah, if nobody else has any other questions in the chat, I'd really like to say thanks again for you guys just coming out and supporting ChainStack. I know that there's a lot of infrastructure providers out there and a lot of spaces that would love to have QiDAO, involved. So it was great having you guys on. I think that I speak for most everybody here when I definitely learned a lot more about DeFi than I did coming into this. And can't wait to see you guys out at ETH Denver. Most of our team's going to be out there. So if you guys are down to connect, we totally should.
Yeah, let's do it. You'll definitely see our team, having some good fun there.
Awesome. Well, cool, guys. Thanks so much. I think we're going to wrap up here. Last chance if you have any questions or comments. But yeah, thanks so much for coming out. And be sure to tune in next week. We'll definitely be doing more DeFi related spaces like this in the future. And follow me if you're interested in more Polygon related stuff. I'm going to try and keep putting out content like this and hopefully connecting with more, DeFi, NFT, and gaming spaces. So we'll see what happens.
Perfect, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Cheers, guys.